And hello. Welcome to another
Hello.
Humpday Q&A. We are joined today with Majid again. Welcome, Majid.
Welcome back.
Hello. Thanks for
He's
having me
alive.
again. Yes, I am. How's
So
it going?
Hey,
yeah,
we didn't get rid of that slide with Majid on it, did we?
I'm afraid we did at the time. We should do the new one. So we're missing a slide for Majid. So Majid's going to have to introduce himself at
No problem.
the manual way. So let's quickly get through these beginning bits. So hello, welcome everyone. My name's Simon Lightfoot. I'm a Flutter community leader and CTO at Dev Angels London, and you can follow me at Twitter at Dev Angels London. Scott.
My name is Scott Stahl. I am a community leader in the Flutter community. I am an organizer for GDG Cleveland, and I live under the stairs at Dev Angels London. Majid?
Randall's not with us today, but Majid, let's introduce yourself.
Sure. And my name is Majid, one of the community leaders, together with Simon and Scott and Flutter GDE.
Woohoo!
There you go.
You got the credentials right there. Let's go for those do's
Letters
and don'ts
after
quickly.
his name. All right. Be nice, respectful, constructive while interacting on YouTube. Remember, this is not Reddit. We do have standards. Don't post anything that's adult, rude, offensive. Don't advertise or promote your business. Don't keep reposting the same question over and over. We will put it at the bottom of the pile. If you can still see the last time you asked your question, definitely don't put it in again. And of course, harassment of any kind is not tolerated. Incels, bigotry, blah, blah, blah. And if you do get booted from here, remember, we're all friends in the Flutter community, everyone who runs everything, and we share ban lists. So if you get booted from here, don't be surprised if you can't log in anywhere.
Yes. So that said, welcome to the stream, everyone, and hope everyone's having a lovely day, lovely hump day, middle of the week. We're getting there. The week's nearly over. We're halfway there.
Yes, definitely.
Raf is asking, how is his favorite group of people? Raf, before I can answer that, I need to know who your favorite people are. And when are you getting on the stream, Raf?
Yeah. Come join us, Raf. Come join us. So just a little reminder, everyone, make sure your questions start with a Q in the live chat, like Raf, as a good example, and we will get to your questions and answer all of your questions. That's the plan. All of your Flutter and Infinite app development questions, we'll get them, try and get some answer to you. We don't know if it's going to be the correct one, but we'll give you an answer. So,
right answers cost money. Dumb answers are free.
There's some of those things. It's very difficult to answer some questions on the stream, so it's really nice.
Definitely.
Like, it's good to at least give someone like a hint on where they kind of need to look, like what they should be Googling, what they should be looking at to kind of sort of direct them forward. Because a lot of the time you hit a brick wall and you're just like, I've tried this, and you get yourself all wound up, just not knowing how to proceed and sort of move forward. And you just need to like that. The rubber duck, as it were, in programming, just need that reflection point, just to say, no, you're doing it right, or you need to tweak it like this and move forward. And it's surprised how unstuck you can quickly get with that kind of feedback.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I don't know if everybody understands what rubber duck programming is. Simon?
Oops, sorry, I clicked on that.
It's a good story.
Let's say it's basically this, right? So the idea is that if you have a mascot, I should really probably get this mascot, the one that we need, right? There we go. So if you have a mascot, the idea is to talk out your problem and what you're doing step by step to your mascot. And the idea is it might be a rubber duck, like you might have like the classical sort of rubber duck. But the idea is that when you speak out the words, you're engaging a different part of your brain, and then you explain the problem, the steps you're going through, and then suddenly you'll get that click moment. Oh, of course it's doing that because I told it to do that, or that kind of thing. And then when you're at that point, you can go fix it. So it's a real simple. Just having someone to talk to is a big difference.
Yeah. So, and it's basically the same thing as when you try to explain a problem to someone because you're asking for help, and then you're in the middle of explaining it and you go, oh, wait, I see it. And so explain it to the duck first. And I do want to point out one other thing real quick. Just as an example, as you can see, this is the same question twice on my screen. And I can see it twice. That's what we mean by spamming. Please don't do this.
There's no need to once you post your question once, if we get to it, we'll get to it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
don't post it again. It's that simple. So, mind you, that question is actually
actually it's been posted a third time already.
Well, actually, but that is a slightly different question. So it's all right. Let's crack on. Right. Let's just have a quick look through here. How to optimize fast web app and load times for overall performance from someone called Flutter. How creative. I mean, just briefly, that's what profiling is.
Yeah, and it's not a package; it's you.
I mean, the other side of this is it's nothing. There's nothing about Flutter Web that you need to optimize specifically for Flutter Web. You're optimizing for websites. If you go look up anything about optimizing for websites, better compressed images, smaller images, like different image size variations, all these kind of things. These are standard practices that cross to standard building something for web. And frankly, you should be doing it for apps as well, right? Like there's no point loading, like I've seen this before. Someone ships a 4 megabyte JPEG file for like a background or something. And it's like, oh, no, it's a PNG even. And you recompress it as a JPEG, half its resolution. There's no perceivable difference. And it's now down at 100 kilobytes rather than 4 meg. You've just saved so much bandwidth in the world. Like if your app gets downloaded 1 million times, you've just solved, like, was it 40 terabytes or something you just saved, right? I mean, yeah, you'd be surprised at like what differences it can make. But
let's say you've got a bunch of icons that you're going to show. Don't use 1.5 megabyte files for your icons.
Right. Yeah. The other one is, so there's other things about performance, right? So I'll give an example. When you're using icons like SVGs, if you use them in Flutter Web, it's going to render. It's Flutter that passes and renders it, not the browser. If you're using the Flutter SVG library, what you actually want to do is a separate SVG library, which will tell the browser to render the SVG as an embedded view, and that might give you better performance. Honestly, embedded views have their own drawbacks, so
yeah.
Try the idea of getting sort of your performance better is to profile your current app, see if you're rebuilding too many times, see if there's other things that you might be doing to benefit your performance. And then at the end of the day, that's what so in your tools inside your browser, you've got like inspection modes that give you all like how long it takes to download something. You can see in a little progress bar inside there. You can see all these tools for just building websites, and you can use them all for building your Flutter web app.
Can I also add a few tips here?
Go for it.
There are a couple of things that I can mention about Flutter Web particularly, and one of them is I think there is a keyword called deferred or something in Dart, right? Which make code splitting or something in Flutter as well. There was some problem with that. I believe there was some issue also in Flutter. I don't remember if it's resolved or not, but I
believe it's resolved.
Yeah, this is something that you should probably take a look at it, like if you want to have a better, code splitting. Because one of the problem of initial load for Flutter Web is right now is a gigantic, JavaScript bundle size, right? So there are different ways that you can mitigate that though. Like if you don't just think about the initial load and just think about the subsequent load afterwards, there are different ways that you can also optimize your Flutter Web. For example, just leveraging service worker. So Flutter already kind of generate that out of the box for you. You can also use some libraries from JavaScript world and also extend that service worker, enhance your request and respond as much as possible. So this gives a better, response time to your, visitors. And another thing that I can tell you, if you don't want to use, for example, service worker and you just want to go purely over wire, then maybe you should consider having CDN, loading from there, having cache, close to your visitors. That will help quite a lot.
It's what helps
And
with normal websites, right? This is what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Like look up normal website optimization techniques, right?
exactly.
And
I mean,
so just for anyone that doesn't
How
know,
would you do it with with oh goodness gracious, was it JS Vue.js?
well, that's the point. So it doesn't matter what JavaScript library you're doing; it generates some JavaScript code. So your website is always built out of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are all static and obviously images, and these are all static files. The idea is that you want these files to be downloaded as quickly as possible to the user. So you want to normally use a CDN, which is a content delivery network or distribution network, I forget. But the practice is that they have what you call edge nodes, which are servers all located around the world in data centers all around the world, and they will duplicate your content to all of those servers, so that when someone requests for your content, it'll go to their nearest server to get the content, which is going to be a smaller ping time, smaller, faster delivery to them.
exactly.
So that's generally the gist of it. There's other reasons, but just using any cloud hosting provider will give you that ability. There's normally a tick box, enable CDN, and you're done. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
like
Also,
you can do that with a cloud bucket and just easy peasy. Yeah.
Design your web app so that you're not downloading anything that's not necessary for the viewer to see at the moment. It is great that you have, I don't know, 150 150 high resolution images that you want to show the viewer that are great. Don't download all 150. Download like the 10 in front of them and either lazy load the rest or use a load more button.
You could, here's the thing, right? You could easily make a widget, sorry, pardon me, that takes a model that contains multiple URLs for different resolutions, and it loads the smallest ones across the web page first, notifies that it's loaded all the small ones, then it then tries to load the middle resolution, the highest resolution. So you can immediately get a picture of what the layout looks. And that's essentially what progressive JPEGs are. It's very similar.
Exactly.
But the general gist is you can do that with content as well. Like load the first 10 pieces of content. This is just like pagination on like a mobile. When you scroll down, it loads more and loads more. Do that thing on your website. So it only loads the first piece of content and then it will load more later. Anyway, we've stayed too much on this topic. And I hope some questions have been coming in because we're going to move on.
I got one more real quick.
Go for it. Go.
That depends, James. Can you say testing? I thought you could.
I don't know that reference.
It's a children's show.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Wrong one. Got to go up one more.
Can we? Sorry. I just want to carry this one quickly before we get to the first, official question. Was the bug ticket created for last week's layout builder issue? I think it was a horizontal versus vertical resizing, if I remember correctly. No, we didn't. I don't think it was layout builder. I think it was something to do with media querying, and we found that when you're resizing the desktop window, if you did it from the corner, it didn't notify correctly. When we did it horizontally, it did. I don't know if that was a bug in Android. I didn't follow it up. However, if you check my gists, I did post the code, so feel free to raise an issue yourself. Make a little example app and raise an issue. I'm sure the Flutter team will be happy with that.
Okay, Clojure Dart.
I can talk about this actually.
Go
So
ahead.
the fun fact is that I've been Clojure developer for a couple of years. I've been coding in Clojure as well as Clojure script for some years, and I do love this language. I believe this is one of the best languages out there, especially for functional programming, right? It's for those who doesn't know Clojure is like a functional programming language, and it's based on Lisp. And the syntax, for those who know Lisp, syntax is pretty familiar. For Clojure Dart, I've seen that I think year ago almost on GitHub, and I was quite excited for that. The main reason is that, like, when you're coming from functional programming, very strong languages like Clojure, you're coming to other like or object-oriented, languages such as Dart. You feel a bit lost. It's a paradigm shift, right? You need to get used to it, classes and etc. and things like that. So Clojure Dot, I think it opens up a window for many functional programmers who also want to get into mobile development, and not even mobile, but also cross-platform. Right now, actually, Flutter opens up, a window over 6 platforms. So it's a great opportunity for those programmers to get into this world and slowly, get themselves familiarized with the whole concept of cross-platform programming. I'm very excited for that. I hope the contributors of Closure Dot continue and make this even better.
Talking about this, actually, I just thought, have you got an update for us on anything that's been happening with you and what the community's been doing?
You mean my new role, perhaps?
Yes.
Sure. I'm actually very excited to announce. I already announced it on my Twitter today and LinkedIn. I accepted a new role in Invertase. Many of you who are watching right now probably know Invertase. Invertase is a company behind Flutterfire. Perhaps many of you have used Flutterfire before, and they do a lot of cool stuff. They have a lot of open source projects such as Melos, Spec, and a bunch of others. So I'm gonna be head of DevRel and community, and that means I'm gonna just focus on Flutter community to find out what is missing, how we should fill it, how we should make the Flutter community and Dart community even better. And I'm very excited for that, to be honest. So because I already was passionate about Flutter, you all know me for a couple of years. I've been doing that, for free in my spare time. But now I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna get paid for that and make Flutter community even better. So I'm very excited for that. You'll see me more in Flutter community channel as well. So definitely working with Simon and Scott.
So there you go. So now you can come on to Humpday Q&A every single week because
I
work is not
can.
taking you away, and you can come on and get paid for it.
Yes, that's correct.
So, also about the Flutter Plus packages, what's been happening there?
Yes, I have a month ago. If maybe some of you recognize that I posted a challenge named "Send a PR and get a swag." So the idea was within over a weekend, end of March was it, I believe. Over a weekend, you could just come to Plus Plugins, find out some issues, small ones, and then try to fix it. Well, just try to fix a bug or a feature. And then over a weekend, we got a lot of PRs, and people said, "Oh, we need more time. We want to work more on this. We want swag and stuff." And we extended the time to end of April. And by now, we got a lot of attention on our repo plus plugin repos, and so end of the April is approaching very fast. So if you still want to send a PR fixing a bug or adding a feature to any of the plus plugins, so please go ahead and take your time. By end of this week, send your PR. I will come back to you, ask your whoever send the PR and gets the PR merged to the master. So we want to send a swag box, including some not dash, but other things. Maybe socks, maybe t-shirt. I have a bunch of them, so definitely include randomly to some of these, boxes, and I'll send it over to you next week, hopefully. So that's a challenge for you.
You get to the Plus plugins and all the content at that address, plus.fluttercommunity.dev.
That's nice. Looking forward for the PRs.
Yes, more PRs the better, and the more chance of swag.
Yes.
We all like swag.
And that's also good to mention that Invertase has sponsored the shipping payment. So you're gonna definitely get this swag.
So I was bringing out the Craig saying congrats.
Thanks. You, Craig.
So let's get to some more questions. We have a few here. Oops. Said, can you give us how we can work with .NET technology? You're on the wrong package. That's called Xamarin. We don't do Xamarin. No, there is. I think someone doing some like cross-platform thing where they're accessing like converting like the Dart SDK to like .NET or something weird like that. I think there was some stuff happening. Someone tried to do the same thing with like JavaScript in there or something. I don't know. Wow, I had a bit of an echo there. No, I couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I mean, here's the thing: are you talking about .NET technology in terms of mobile? Because I mean, on desktop, you can still like load it, like make .NET DLL files and load them into your desktop app using FFI. I mean, there's other things you can do. Maybe explain a bit more what you're trying to achieve with .NET, and we can tell you how you best to achieve that with Flutter.
Yeah.
That's what I say to that. Yeah. Just a question for you, Majid. Check that in there.
Oh, yeah. Well,
it's a lovely new camera.
It is actually, and this is actually a new camera, like literally new, very new camera, and that's from Sony, and Sony's ZV-E10. It was released 6 months ago. I mean, it was
ZV-E10.
Yeah, ZV-E10, and well, it's cheaper than a 6400. I mean, it's pretty famous.
Lovely picture. Is that real focal depth or is that fake?
Well, I have. You see, the focus is changing.
Sure, but that's what I'm trying to. But what I'm trying to say is the reason why it's out of focus behind you is because you've got real depth of field inside the camera.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I got a fixed lens, so that's why it's now focused only on me, and it has. One of the good thing about this is this Sony, the new camera is actually built for content creator. So you can actually connect it with USB-C to your computer, and you get it over to your computer as a webcam. It's very, very nice. And by the way,
it's essentially a DSLR, right?
No. It's actually it's not DSLR. It's one of those. What do we call it? Mirrorless camera.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. Sony doesn't produce any DSLR anymore, so it's just
news to me.
Yeah.
All right. Next question: is it possible to use Material U theme with a desktop app? I mean, the thing is, right, is Material U completely isn't supported yet. We looked into that last week, I think. And yes, you can use it in a desktop. You can use whatever is supported right now with a desktop app. There's no harm with that. But however, what Material U is doing is just providing a color scheme, right? You could easily just use provide or anything else to provide a class object with like 4 colors for your color scheme, and you can pass it down. In fact, who is it in the community that did that really great theming package? Mike Rydstrom?
Yeah, Mike Rydstrom.
Do you remember the name of the package?
Yeah, Flex Color Scheme.
That's it.
I actually have an interview on my YouTube channel with him. Like, yeah.
Post the link, and we'll post the link in the description if you send it over, Majid. I'll make sure that gets in there. So yeah, this is the package. I've just put it in the live chat. Flex_color_scheme, and that gives you that same sort of ability. So yeah, try it out and see if that solves your problem. Next question. I'm not going to try and pronounce your name because I can't even read those letters. Do I need trigonometry knowledge to create custom widgets using a custom painter? No. I think you need just basic math, Cartesian coordinates, stuff like that. You're dealing with just XY coordinates when you're dealing with painting, and for the most part, you don't need any sort of real trigonometry. You don't need sine and cosine. I mean, it depends. Let's say you're trying to do a clock face. You're going to want to use sine and cosine and things like that to work out the new position of where you want to put stuff in the Cartesian plane. But you don't need like real high depth math to do any programming, really. It's more about logic, more about Boolean algebra. Is it possible to create desktop application that can load plugins at runtime?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I mean, it depends on what you want in those plugins. So at the moment, I don't think there's a way to dynamically load even compiled Dart code. I don't know. I don't think the Dart compiler supports exports right now. As soon as the Dart compiler can support exports and compiling to dynamic libraries, which I think you can do. I mean, it compiles to a shared object, which is the dynamic library itself. But there should be no reason why you couldn't use FFI to communicate with any external plugin code, right? That's a great way to do that. Dart has always offered that ability to load dynamically code in various ways. But yeah, you can definitely load using the FFI package, Dart FFI package, external libraries and call functions in them. So that's plugins. Again, if your plugin is to provide UI, I'm getting an echo off of your microphone, I think, Widget. If you're what was I saying? Yeah, if you're trying to load like UI or something else, then yeah, the chance of you actually doing that right now is probably slim. So it all depends on what you're trying to do with your plugins, really. Feel free to step in on any of these, Majid. I'm just going to plow through some of these. Do you want to take this one? Anything to add to this?
Yeah, well, let's actually read the question. For full stack Dart, would it be advisable to start with HTTP 1 shelf and then later upgrade to HTTP 2 gRPC? Well, I think that, to my opinion, it really depends on what you want to do, to be honest. But I probably start with HTTP 2. It's kind of like de facto standard right now. Like, I mean, many people start from there. For gRPC, to be honest, that really depends on what you want to do. I don't think you should start from there right away. Again, that really depends on what you want to do, right? But if you want to start like building a web server, for example, well, start from HTTP 2. Like, why not? And it's giving you a lot of things out of the box that you probably need, especially the performance that we had a question about it.
I'm looking at this going, but Shelf does support HTTP 2.
I think there was some.
Doesn't
That's a good question. I'm
pretty sure it does. I mean, because the Dart already has a HTTP 2 capable server built in.
Yeah, it does actually. Right now.
I think the difference here is more about this says here, then later upgrade to HTTP 2 / gRPC. gRPC is built on this binary protocol using what the buffers called? Proto buffers. Yeah, on top of HTTP 2. The reason why HTTP 2 is great is because it does bidirectional communication and multiplexing over one connection, which is needed in today's modern world. And things like, you're on Stack Overflow and you can see when someone else upvotes an answer, it immediately changes on your screen because you got notified when someone else did an action on the website. That is bidirectional communication. That's also called WebSockets in as well. WebSockets do this. And you can do that in HTTP 1 and HTTP 2. The way it works in HTTP 1 is it upgrades the HTTP connection to a bidirectional binary connection, basically. But yeah, I don't think you need. Most full stack things don't need gRPC, and I think it adds way more complexity right now than what you need. You could do a HTTP 1 or HTTP 2 standard HTTP server, RESTful connections, and do your API calls back and forth. Job done.
I mean, most of the time, like in the last couple of years that I've been working as an architect, so we use RPC for communication between microservices, like backend to backend stuff, mostly. Like, I don't see like why you need to use that over.
The nice thing I found with gRPC, and I did this for a previous project, was about the fact that it does that bidirectional communication, basically to stream content to a client. But there's built-in WebSocket. I think it's still so much overhead to manage the proto buffers and to do that. And then the generated code may not be up to scratch. Like, there's certain things I found bugs in the generated code I had to submit fixes for to the Dart libraries, and I was just like, you know what? HTTP, REST, and you have better control over that. You can do a bunch of stuff. You're not limited in schema. And you could just. Yeah, I just felt that more at home using the HTTP stuff. It's still HTTP 2, and let me know I could do push, essentially server push. Yeah,
exactly.
What else do we have here? Let's see what else we have. Background fetch plugin processes fully support in iOS. It's not really a question, and you're asking, does it fully support it? And the answer is yes, as far as I'm aware. So there's actually a community plugin, what's it called? Work Manager, named after the Android solution. So I'll put that in the chat. That allows you to do background fetch. I mean, there's other things you can do in the background. You can run, there's plenty of stuff that you can run in the background and do that. Is there anything else you want to add?
I think I've also seen another package named exactly background fetch or something that was also support. I don't remember what.
I remember one called background something, right?
I think it was background fetch as a package name. So
I'm not seeing it. Anyway, there's plenty of packages out there.
Let me just search. Yeah, there is actually one, and it's I'll post it to the private chat here.
Go for it.
This one.
Oh, I must have missed that just now. Oh, well, there you go. So yeah, background fetch. We could bring this up on stream actually. Should we do that? Let's do that. Since we're talking about stuff, let's see. Can I share? Is the question. And let's see. Are we going to get this on side by side?
There you go.
Make this a bit smaller. So yeah. Oops. Background fetch. There we go. Transistor software. Transistor soft. Flutter background geolocation files. Interesting. So it looks like there is, there is limitations. You will never receive events faster than 15 minutes on iOS. Again, there's limitations on the platform, right? But there's this seems pretty straightforward, right? Like, you create you have your headless task, and then you could say register this headless task, and then that will be called in a background way, and then you got background finish task, and then that notifies them that task is finished. And then yes, background start. So you can start in that headless in basically the head. But this basically headless task is going to be an isolate, a background isolate. It probably explains this in the documentation. But yeah, looks good. Let's move on, I guess. Oh yeah, I saw this. I wanted to bring this up. I like that. So the rubber duck stuff we were talking about earlier. Yeah, put a little like speaker inside, and when you speak to it, it does a Stack Overflow search, and then speaks the answer to you. Oh, that's just brilliant. And you just press a button on your dash, and then it's like, boop, and then it's like, like a Google. What's it like? Google Home or Google Action, or whatever it's called. Yeah. Is there a fast way to reorder the folder structures on an existing project? Okay, so you've found a bug, and the bug has been around since Flutter day one. So if you move a file, it will refix all the imports. If you move a folder, it will screw all the imports up a lot of the time. And if you move multiple folder, it definitely does not work. So in short, there is no fast way apart from what I would probably do is just move the files, and then any of the imports are invalid, just delete the import lines and then do the auto fix, which will re-import everything. So it'll fix up all the imports and use the default. But that doesn't always work, like, because you might have the same class in multiple files or something. But it gets you most of the way there. The problem is there is no nice fast way to do that, right? It's mainly because anyway, it's a bug, I think, to do with the plugins and the analysis server and the way it updates. I don't know if there's a bug ticket for this, but I know it's always been an issue since day one. Yeah, I mean, check the Flutter issues and see if you can find the bug ticket for it. No, welcome back, Scott.
Wow, thank you. And all this coming from the man who's having me port a whole bunch of his code into another project, moving folders and rearranging them.
Is there a possibility to work with Matter framework for Google Home SDK? Never heard of it.
No.
So, I mean,
although I would probably like to, because I've been wanting to do things for Google Home, and I've got a question for you, Imad. How do you sideload into your Google Home? Are you?
Well,
I heard that there's something you pull off the bottom and a USB.
Well, it says that Google Home SDK, so there must be an official SDK now that probably gives you instructions. Right. Next question. Yeah. Is it okay to have static functions to build widgets? Will it have impact on performance? I want to have class text in which has static function returning text widgets. It won't impact performance at all. But the problem here is your functions, the widget that your functions creates is not cached by the framework. If every time you call that function, it's returning a new instance of that widget. There's a potential that a build will cascade and cause performance problems. Basically, you don't want to be using the short answer. There's this ongoing debate around, well, not debate, but talk online around the fact that do you use methods to return widgets in your build, or do you use other widgets? And there's always been the problem. And the answer to this is use widgets, right? Because the framework, a widget is an object that can have state and variables around it inside the framework for accounting. So it can make better decisions for you about that widget. Whereas a function is just a function that returns a widget. It knows nothing. It's just code that runs. So there's no whatsoever. So you kind of, yeah, there's not much you can do in terms of performance stuff. But in short,
well,
what you're talking about with text widgets, sorry, I just want to be clear about this. What you're talking about with text and text widgets would not impact performance, right? Because it's so basic, right? Like, but it's when you have deep hierarchies that you don't want to be rebuilding those deep hierarchies all the time from build functions.
See, from where I'm sitting, it looks a bit vague to me, and I'm wondering what is the difference between this text class and a factory?
Well, it's not. But the point here is that if his build method is calling these functions on every call of that build method, and that calls other build, like you've got like this trickle down thing where you just essentially like it's the same as having one big tree of UI inside one build method. It all has to be constructed every single time that build function is called, because it has to call the constructors, right? Whereas when you each one of those widgets can have its own subtree of widgets inside it, and that is cached independently of the parent widget then. And that means that you get a performance gain. Right. Do you have anything to add? Sorry, I kind of just went off on one there.
No, I agree with you.
There you go. He agrees, people. He agrees. Right. Craig said, Majid, you got a hell of a jawline there. Stop hiding under the Vikings beards.
Whoa.
Yes,
speaking of the Vikings, by the way, it's end of this week is end of the CFP deadline. So
quick,
if anyone submit your talk, we're gonna meet you end of August, early September. 3 tracks.
Where can they do that? Is it fluttervikings.com?
Fluttervikings.com, and the big button in the first page is call for paper. Just click on that and submit your talk.
Let's see. Roberto, when I use stack and overlap a button within a line on the bottom edge of a container, then change screen size or rotate the button moves, how can I anchor it to the container? When I use a stack and overlap a button within a line on bottom edge of the container, then change the screen size or rotate the button moves, how can I anchor it to? I don't follow that at all. You are anchoring to the container. That's what's moving. You're saying you're aligned to the bottom edge, so which means when you rotate or change the screen size, it's going to stick to the bottom edge. So perhaps you can restate your question with a link to a gist, or I don't know.
This is exactly one of those questions you mentioned in the beginning. Like we have to see exactly what's going on, you know.
Stack Overflow that bad boy. I'm sure someone has an answer on Stack Overflow. Remy to the rescue, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it okay to have static? Oh, we did that one, didn't we? It was repeated. How dare you? Right. Advice for intermediate level devs to go ahead for complex and big projects. Any advice for intermediate level devs to go ahead on complex and big projects? Good
First
luck.
advice: build. I mean, practice.
The thing is, again, it's that same problem I was saying earlier. People you go into this thing. How do I organize my folder structure? It's like, choose a way and do it. If it's wrong, fix it. Like the thing here is like you will learn that is either the right way because it works for you, and if it doesn't work, then that's the wrong way, and now you know the right way because you've changed it. So the point here is, don't hold yourself back trying to work out what the best way to proceed is. Proceed forward and determine the best way. That's, from my personal opinion, because you refactor. If anything, hone your refactoring skills, how you can manipulate classes and move things around or rewrite stuff. Like that is part of programming. You go look at these things on GitHub and you'll see this lovely like structure of code and class and everything else. And you go, oh, it's amazing. I could never do that, right? Or you get that kind of like imposter syndrome kick in. And you're like, if you go look at the history, of that file and go to the very first version, I guarantee it's completely different.
Exactly.
I mean, the chances are the other side of that is that there's trick people, developers. I've known developers that have done this, and that is they publish all of their code finished to GitHub, so it looks like it's their initial commit is the final code, right? That's another thing that you can do, which means there's no history there, right? So
let me also tell one more thing to this guy right now. So sometimes when you have not worked on a big project, you probably think that things are very different in that project. Well, in fact, it might be like not that much difference with a small project. The only difference is just you're gonna have a lot of more files. So the way that you manage your state is gonna be the same. So it's just like more widgets and more screens to handle. So the way that you're gonna manage your data is gonna be the same. It's just more data sources, right? So it's like it's not that much difference. So you should not be very afraid of accepting even a big project, because in fact it just takes it. I think it just takes more time to get used to these kind of big projects, having more folders, more files, and but many of the things are they just remain the same. So it's no big difference.
all right.
And one other thing I want to add to that real quick,
Okay.
I have done a lot of training on the receiving end as well as the giving end. And the fact is, we don't remember things that are easy. We don't. You do it, you look at it, it works, you're done. Or you can't figure it out for a minute. You say, hey, how do I do X? They tell you, you do it, it's done. You've worked on it for maybe 2 minutes. The one you remember is the thing you beat your head on for 4 hours. Okay, there's a joke. Wisdom can be measured. All you need to do is get one of these. Okay, right here. I wasn't always a dev. Okay, but you get yourself a micrometer. Okay, and you measure the thickness of the skin right here. Okay, from when the person's going.
I mean,
that's how you learn.
Yeah, the end of the day, like literally the other day, I won't speak specifics here, but a project that we're working on, there was a state integer being passed back, and this is in some native Android code that we need to use for Flutter, and we're interpreting that integer as one set of enums that we think it is. These are like, and it turns out it's a completely different set. So of course, the behavior is completely different to what we expected. We're getting these numbers right. This doesn't make sense. This should be the right state it's in. Blah 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 blah. And then it doesn't take. It's not until you kind of rework the issue, and go, oh wait a second, something clicks. Yeah. Oh, that's this other enum or this other state, and then it all clicks into place. And then there's some of these things, like there's something there, like for example that one there, you can read the documentation, you can see it, and you can do it, sometimes even now we know that can exist. There's no reason why that can't happen again in a different context in the future for a different problem. Like there's so much of programming is, yes, you can learn the APIs and you can learn the functions to call and all this kind of stuff, but there's a lot of it is just you're going to whack your head against the wall because there is no. It's so complicated. There's no like go to just press this button and it magically works, right? Like, yeah, it's such a complex behavior that you're gonna come up with problems. So just you have to persist. That's the other thing, persistence for key. Yeah. Right, let's moving on. Otherwise, we'll be Hill Day. What's the best source or list to get started with Flutter for JavaScript developers?
Got it. It's the same list that is the best for anyone. And that list is, whoops, that's great. It flipped to it. Whoop, sorry. The highly subjective roadmap.
You're going to have to zoom in.
Yeah.
Oh,
whoop, wrong way.
There we go.
All right. By Alexi right there. The highly subjective roadmap, and basically it walks you through the basics of what you need to learn, then regular Flutter, then getting deeper. Now, once you finish getting deeper, you should be employable as long as you already understand how to work with a board and tickets. And then, you start getting into CI/CD, test builds, matrices, crash logs, App Store guidelines and all that. These are all more advanced things. If you get it to right here, you should be able to get a job.
I could say the other side of this, right, is when you look at this kind of stuff, when you're talking about learning, it's like, I couldn't explain to someone how you release an app on the App Store. I've done it. I've done it so many times. It's untrue, but it's not something you can tell someone how to do it, right? Like it's different for each use case. So there's different checkboxes, there's different settings, there's different reasons to do different things. And I feel like a lot of the time you can only learn by doing. Is another thing I kind of feel. There's a lot of this, like, I don't know what the specifics were I just saw there, but yeah, it's like the app stores. You can only really see that by doing it, right?
Can I add one more thing to this? Well, on top of this one that you're going to learn, so don't forget about Flutter documentation. There is actually a specific like section in Flutter documentation that you can find for web developer and JavaScript developers. If you're coming from React or React Native or web, and so you can actually go there and check out the comparison between the things that and the thing that you need to know.
But actually, I like that. I'm just going to bring that up on here on the stream to show everyone. So if you go to flutter.dev, as I do, I go to docs, and then there's getting started guides. I think if I remember right over here on the left, here we go, from another platform. I hope you can see that, guys. From another, you can see from another platform, and then you've got like from Android, iOS, React, and there's web, and this sort of goes through like giving you some of the things. There's some of the things you see in web and what you do similar in Flutter and how they differ, and lots of examples and information. You can see it all over here. So yeah, check it out.
And I want to apologize for diving off camera and being very distracted. The short version is we have an older rescue dog, and she is not having an easy time of it lately. So I am babysitting.
I hope she feels better soon.
Yeah, she's having a rough
One more
day.
thing about the previous question, by the way. Also, make sure that you are following the Flutter team Medium.
Medium.
Because there are lots of articles from time to time that they are posting for different things. So just also follow that and
also follow the Flutter community.
There you go, and follow us.
Yeah, right. Don't forget to follow us. Links in the description, all that jazz. Right, there you go. So let's next question here.
I like this one.
Sorry, I have to jump off right now. So thank you for having me again.
Majida's abandoning us.
I'm sorry for that. So I'll stay more next time.
Okay, sounds great.
Good to
see you, buddy. I ran into this one at a job interview, and I want to point this out. One of the big flags to me to use a set instead of a list is that if you put the data you're interested in into the keys, okay, so that it never repeats, right? And there's only one value that you need, and you can't figure out, okay, what should I put in for the value? Then that's time to use a set.
That's yeah, if you're using a map, an example. But here's this example here of saying set instead of a list.
I'm sorry.
So I just want to be very clear. Set instead of a list, searching for an object, what is the maximum effort? You always use a set if your items are unique.
Mm-hmm.
If you can ever have two of the same item, that's a list. Otherwise, it's always a set. So there's a lot of time people use lists when they should be using sets. It's that simple, right?
Now,
I'm just saying, like let's imagine you've got a set is a unique set of items. So as soon as you want to double up on the same value, that's a list. And there's that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the separation. And the other side of that is, yeah, if you're treating if you're treating it your list as, well, if you're doing a map and the keys are your main bit of information in your map, and you're not sure what the value is, as Scott was saying, that's also should be using a set at that point. There's also tree splice set. If you go to, I just quickly mentioned this is overlooked. So in api.dart.dev or
it's also a splay map. In fact, is it the splay map that's default?
Splay tree map. No. They're the linked list ones are splay tree set and splay tree map are auto sorting. They're balanced trees, self-balancing binary trees. This is really helpful for when you basically give it a comparison function. And then when you go to insert, let's say in this case, a string, like here, add Neptune, then add all of these, you'll notice that the order comes out in the correct natural ordering for in alphabetical ordering here, right? And you haven't had to insert Neptune at a certain position like you would do in a list. This is what a set does for you, this kind of stuff, right? And then it's very quick for it to do, does it contain Mars? Because it can do a binary search, right? And it can like pretty much instantaneously tell you, even quicker than a hash, what if it's contained in the map. The default that we see being used is linked hash set, I believe, is the default implementation for sets, which uses a hash, the hash code of the object as the index, essentially. It's complicated. I won't go into it, but anyway. So there's and there's also linked hash map as well. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, really go into Dart collections and read through. There's so many. Don't just stick to maps and sets and lists. I mean, you have splay tree maps, splay tree lists. What was a hash set? There's a double linked queue. Yeah. Did you even know we have a queue?
So that is the standard implementation, I think, for the queue based class, right? That's also another one. There's also some other ones that are kind of not used enough are the mix-ins. So you get a list base, which is the base class for a list. You can basically extend a class from this, and it has all the features of a standard list, right? You implement the missing abstract methods. There's about 4 of them, like add and remove or something, and that's it. Your object can be treated as if it's an iterable, as if it's a list, because it implements. You can see here all these things implement this, and there's also list mix-ins, and that's when you obviously have a multiple inheritance problem, and you want the list behavior, but you also want some other behaviors. Then you can use a list mix-in to achieve the same result. And there's some examples of things in Dart/Flutter that do this. But yeah, so then you can find that for set and for list and for map. Also these. So if you do on list, let me just quickly find this. You'll find there's a constructor on list called, it'll be one time I can't find the base class. Unmodifiable, list.unmodifiable. And essentially this actually creates this external factory essentially creates a unmodifiable list view in essence. I won't go into it, but this is the same thing. A list view, just to be clear point, list views are quite important because essentially they're views on top of the original iterable. So the original iterable still exists, and then this just accesses the original. So it's a view to the original data set, if that kind of makes sense. yeah. Anyway, slightly different behavior again. Yeah. Are you got anything to add, Scott?
Actually, I was just going to say, Mark Glassberg came up with a good one. I like to throw it a plug every once in a while. Is fast immutable collections.
You're gonna have to zoom in. Yeah.
And fast immutable collections, in short, is it basically contains all the little extras that you wish we had stock.
There's also another one that's I don't know about. Well, the performance differences are, but there's also KT Dart. So if you use the Kotlin immutable collections, KT Dart from another known community member, and GDE can you can use that also. Sure, let's crack on. Let's get through some of these questions. I'm sure more questions are coming in whilst we're waiting on one.
Absolutely.
Do you know of a tried and true data structure for calendars? What? I mean, the problem here. So I know the problem. There's a tried and tested package. In fact, there's a pub package for this. Oh, I'm going to kick myself. I can't remember the name of it.
While Simon's researching that, different sizes of images inside a grid view. The first thing I would try is to create a widget that had a sized box with your image in it. And then you could use an alignment inside of your sized box. Now, this way you get a consistent size box in your grid view, but your images are going to be different sizes. So that's a start, and play with it from there. Okay, Simon, I bought you as much time as I can.
There's a known problem about this with dealing with like having a chunk of time, and then when you want to insert something in the middle or cut the chunk up into, it's like a time tree or something. It's I can't remember the name of this data structure of a life.
He's getting old, folks.
Thank you. But basically the idea is that you've got a series of time and then like a calendar, and then you want to insert something else, and you can say that there's two items that have the same slot used. Honestly, if you go Google it, you'll find this. But I did just check around. It was kind of interesting. You do have there is time. Where is it? Time. I'm on page 2. You got time span, which is not this, but this is kind of it would probably be a nice, helpful class to use. So you can put like a start and end time and get what it is in minutes and hours. But these are all helper classes that you could do yourself. Time series is another one. So this has some points about dealing with stuff over time, but the I can't for the life of me remember this. I will know it when I see it. I think it's a type of tree. I just can't remember the name of it. I mean, if anyone remembers, please put it in the chat because it escapes me. There is. I'm not going to find it at the moment. That's going to bug the hell out of me. If ask again next week and we'll see if we can find it next week. But yeah, if apart from that, I would go look at calendar related stuff, right? I'm sure someone else has worked with calendars and has like a bunch of information that you can use. But the problem, I know the problem you're saying, and it's that notion of being able to split up time into chunks. There's
you would think they would have come up with a standardized object.
Well, there is, but it's not. There's a standardized name of this type of structure, and I can't remember for the life of me what it's called. Honestly, I think you could probably find it on Wikipedia or somewhere. We'll leave it there.
Alrighty.
Raf mentioned earlier about what we were talking about, which was probably should use position instead of a line. It wouldn't solve the problem because you're still bounding it to an edge, so it'd still move. But yes. Overall, positioned is always more performant to a degree than a line because hit testing, for example, doesn't have to go through a line to get to the widget underneath, right? Position will literally, you're saying, put it in this position relative to the parent. So it has performance impacts, minor performance impacts. You can.
And I didn't see the original question, but every time I think about this, I always think responsiveness. And I try very hard to avoid any hard-coded values as far as sizes or positions. So I personally, this is just me, I tend to use aligns whenever possible and avoid positions, just because you're using that -1 to 1 and it will adjust accordingly.
I mean, it depends on what I'm trying to say is if you're trying to, that's correct. If you're trying to put something like somewhere in the viewport, then align is better because you don't get fractional positions.
Right.
However, if you're just trying to lock something to like an edge or to like a corner or to a to part of a boundary of something, then positioned is always going to be better.
Yeah, top, bottom, right, left, and set it to 0.
I want to just talk about this quickly. This is always overlooked, and that is, so these are the constructors for positioned, right?
Make
and
it
you
bigger.
And it doesn't mean to be doing that, right? Positioned, you have position directional, great. This one here, position fill. So the interesting point about this is the filled position items are only their position and layout is only applied once the non-positioned items are laid out. So what you can do, let's say you have a center widget, which means you have loose boundaries. So now the content wants to be smallest, essentially as small as possible, as natural size in the center of its parent. And then you put some text in there. And that text can change its size depending on its content. Now, if we wrap a stack around that text, the stack will be the same size as the text. However, we want something to fill over the top. We can now do position.fill. The position.fill widget inside the position.fill widget, this child here, will not affect the size of the stack because it's sized after the other ones have been done. So this will always fill that size, if that kind of makes sense. So this is a nice way of saying if you want something to overlay, use position.fill. That's what you want.
So position.fill will keep the size of the stack consistent regardless of the size of the children?
Well, yeah, of the position, yeah. In short, I don't know if that makes sense. It has its usages, and you'll find them really helpful. Anyway,
it's what happens when two people are trying to drive.
Go on.
All right. Where should we call the functions in a init state? This is actually a great question for beginners, because it is also the reverse in dispose.
Yeah. So it's or here. It's the second part of this, right? You should not. So in the init state, it's not going to be before the super. It's always after the super. And this is mainly about, let's say you inherit from another widget, right? And that other widget initializes something in its init state that the subclass depends on. So let's say you have a widget called I don't know, box, and it extends colored box or something, right? Or the other way around, sorry. Like you have a parent class called box. It describes what a box is, and you have the parent widget called colored box. In its init state, it knows that it needs to go get the size of the box from its parent, essentially from its subclass, right? At that point, you need to make sure that the parent is initialized first, because it may not have set up those local variables. It may not have had its state initialized. So you always do init state before you do your own, but in reverse, in dispose, you want to make sure you clean up any of your subscriptions on before the parent, because the parent might close down a stream before you get to close down yours. So again, that's the idea. It's always that way around. So init state is super first, and then dispose is super last.
Yep.
Hopefully
that's. I'm sorry, I was double checking other questions. I'm assuming you did touch on the fact that if you dispose the super first, the rest of your stuff kind of hangs in memory, doesn't it?
No. It can though. I mean, it depends on what you're doing, and like the notion is you don't want to cause any sort of. A lot of programming errors revolve around timing, right? Like when you do one thing after another. Now, when you're doing multiple threads, which is like a lot of sort of Android and iOS code, you get into all sorts of synchronization issues, and you need to do lots of accounting to work around those threading problems. With Dart, we have one thread that's essentially got coroutines on it, so you do one thing after another, and you have some guaranteed way of looking at the ordering of asynchronous operations. but you can get into a problem when just in normal programming when you need to do one thing before another, and yeah, that can really bite you. Yeah, like it's really difficult to find those problems, especially if there's a time delay between them. So if you use async and await, it's really difficult to see that.
Speaking of hunting down problems in weird situations, web. The debug or the developer console is definitely your friend. When using web, I can't know where the bug is because it's in the JavaScript file and the error looks very strange. Could you guide me on how to solve a bug in web? Wondering about how Angular Dart debug works.
So there is a package called, so I don't think you need to do this. There's a package called stack_trace, and that and another package, you can actually translate your JavaScript stack traces to Dart stack traces. I've done this. However, it's supposed to do that for you. So it's probably because your Dart developer tools aren't running, or use the Dart inspector. So the other thing, Dart dev tools. So the Dart dev tools, web page, the observatory stuff, that should also show you a stack trace with Dart in there. It might be that you've not got. I wonder if it's like what's it called? If you don't capture and print out your stack trace. So, for example, in Dart, if you print your stack trace, you're going to get the Dart stack trace. But if it's an uncall exception, so it's reached the main function and then exit out of the Dart and it's left into JavaScript, then you're going to get JavaScript crash. I don't know. You should get Dart. Yeah, it depends on where your crash is happening, though. It is complicated. It does add an extra level of complexity. The best thing to do is step through your code. You can step through your code and see when it occurs. Normally, your stack trace will give you some inclination as to what's happening. Yeah, there's not much really I can say. Post your stack trace. That's what I suggest.
We try to deal with it all the time, and we're not having a whole lot more luck than you are. Yeah. So let's see here. Rephrasing a stack question. There's a button. It should stick to a certain place in the container. Now, I'm going to assume this may not be an actual container class, but might be the stack itself. When the screen size changes or rotating the screen, the button moves and the position, they would like it to stick. First of all, you need to decide, do you want it to stick a certain number of pixels from the edges, or do you want it to stick in the way it visually looks, such as if you want it off the corner by a certain amount?
I think.
Well, I'm thinking align XY is going to do the second, and position is going to do the first.
They've got two problems here. One is you're probably doing it wrong by the sounds of it, right? And that is mobile UI needs to be reactive, right? It's you've got too many different slight variations of screen size, and you'll get overflows. And it's like the mobile experience is completely different nowadays. So doing that alone, like fixing it into a certain position, normally isn't what you want to do. However, there are very certain situations where your UI, you need to stack stuff and have it fixed position or size over something else. And that's more about like either dividing the UI up and then having it centered over a certain area maybe, or if you do need to have it pixel aligned, pixel perfect, set a size box with your pixels, like X width and height for your parent container that has has your stack within it, that has your alignment in it, and then wrap the entire thing in a fitted box. And what that does is it means your object will still scale, but it will maintain its like aspect ratio and size based relative to that pixel unit, and your stacked positioned item will always stay relative to that original aspect ratio. So you'll never get it move.
And that's another point as well, is even if you put it into a row or column and into an expanded, you can use an actual aspect ratio, which will actually cause it, no matter how it flips around, it will always maintain the same aspect ratio. And if you put it at 0.8 and 0.1,
yeah. So what we're saying is
then it will always be there, no matter how big or small everything's made. And even if you rotate the device, it will still keep it upright, and your container will not flip.
Yeah, so this is an example here, right? So
and it also won't be misshapen.
16 by 9, even though the height of this has changed. So if I change the height of this to 50 and hit run, it'll be half its height, hopefully.
There we
go. But it still
yeah,
maintains its aspect ratio. So that means if I had a stack inside my container here, when my line would always be positioned and it still be relatively correct, if that kind of makes sense, relative to the same position as it was. Yeah, again, hopefully that answers your problem. Oh, and it looks like Roberta's come back with something else here. So another stack question. I love that Flex widgets resize widgets to the screen size, not to the screen size, to the parent size, with expanded and flexible. But how to achieve this effect inside a stack?
First, don't use an expanded or flexible in a stack.
Yeah, don't do that. I mentioned that earlier. That's what your position.fill essentially does. If you're just trying to like, it depends on what you're trying to do. But if you're trying to like size to a fraction of the stack, then you do a position.fill, and then
there's a what's it, fractionally sized something.
Yeah, you do a fractionally sized box inside a position.fill, right? So you got a fractionally sized box, and you can provide your fractional width and height as the parameters to the constructor.
Widget of the week is your friend. Go to the widget of the week playlist, put it on, turn the sound down so you can barely hear it while you're doing other things, and just let that playlist go over and over and over again.
Subconsciously.
Okay? No, I'm telling you, I had to drive 8 hours each way to do a talk. And I put widget of the week on a loop on my phone, and it's playing through the car speakers. And by the time I got to where I was going, my eyeballs were just.
So if you do a
Sorry.
If you do a position.fill with a fraction size box, that will mean that it works out a fraction based on the stack's natural size. However, you might want the stack to expand and to use a fraction of that size, in which case on your stack widget, you need to make sure that you set the fit parameter. So in your constructor, it takes a stack fit, and by default it's loose. And what you want to do is set that to expand, and that will make the stack essentially expand to fill its parent container. And then you could just put a fraction size box as its child, and it will be fractionally aligned within the stack. So there's no need for a position.fill at that point. So, and pass through is basically, I don't care if it's loose or tight, just wherever the parent tells me I am, loose or tight, loose or expanded, sorry. Or whatever. Yeah. So you'll get those constraints passed through. But yeah, there you go.
There we go. Could the Flutter team provide certifications in the future? First of all, we cannot speak for the Flutter team.
I was about to say, we are not the Flutter team members. We're nothing to do with Flutter, and Google official, so we can't speak to that. I think the community, literally, when we were talking about this same problem in the days of Alpha, weren't we, Scott? I mean,
let me make a point real quick. Now I'm going to have to dive off screen. The puppy does need my help. It's been discussed among a lot of people, and I have seen Flutter team members in the discussions, and I haven't seen this discussion for over a year. But there were a lot of questions about, first of all, is there going to be a certification? Well, first question is, what does it take to get certified? And actually, no, the first question before that was, who gets to decide what it takes? Then, how are we going to decide what those things are? How are we going to judge it?
I'd say the thing is,
you
need people that are carry on. You need people to have enough knowledge and stuff to certify correctly, or there needs to be that knowledge share. I mean, it's a complicated problem, and it's not a simple one. So, but there could be there's no reason why an independent company couldn't start doing this. Right. But then, it's going to cost money, essentially. Right. There's no like free, I don't think there's a way of doing this for free. Right. you can put you through, you can put you through a course and give you like a PDF at the end of it saying, great, you now know something, right? But its practical purpose, it needs to be industry recognized, and therefore it needs to be done by a company or connections to companies like the Flutter team official that's given it gravitas, as it were, for a reason for official companies to say, okay, that person is certified good by a known good source, if that makes sense. All right, anyway. Roberto's getting lots of questions in. Another stack. Did we answer that one? Yes, I did. Sorry. Whoops. When I validate text form field and make the borders red when something is wrong, but when I animate the text form field, when they are red with shake effect, the field loses its red border. So you need to you probably need to add a key. So basically, what's happening is if you take an object outside of the tree and reparent it in a different position in the tree, that is like you give it a new parent, you will lose the state of that. So what you need to do is always have your animated shaking parent widget, whatever it is, above it in the tree, and then you'll just shake it when it has the error. The child widget will always maintain its state. Again, this depends on how you're rebuilding. You should probably pass in the child into your animated widget class. But basically, the reason why it's losing the red border is because it's losing its state, and it means that the state object is being reconstructed. Normally, that's the main two reasons for that is it has a different position in the tree, and it has a different key. So normally keying your widgets can also help, and you should always key any sibling widgets with the same class type. So imagine you have a list of text form field. All those text form fields should always have their own key parameter filled in, because the framework cannot know if you delete one that this second one is to replace the first one, because it ends up in the same position, hierarchically speaking, inside the tree. So it won't update its state properly. So yeah, you always want to make sure that if you have sibling widgets of the same type, a row that contains only sort of multiple classes, multiple of the same widget next to each other, they should all have their own keys. And you can just do key and then $index, or whatever it is that you're building up your list with. But yeah, that's just something to pay attention to. Right, we're getting to the end of these questions here. Which are the new? Yeah, no, I'm not seeing anything new coming. As any topics anyone wants to discuss, we could even do an example or something. Yeah, there's a few things we could do. Otherwise, we'll start calling it up, I think, and rolling up the stream. Short stream today. Any questions? Anyone? No. I'm on my own here. This is no good. Need some topics to talk about. Show stack example. That is a good idea. See, I'm glad someone's thinking. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. Hang on. I'm sure we can do that nicely. Bear with me 1 second. That is what I want to do. Bear with me. Un momento. Right, so let's give ourselves a starting point. Okay. Share the screen. Bear with me 1 second. Run. Let's see. Share. There's plenty of questions I missed, is there? I didn't see any questions I missed. Ask your question again. I give you my blessing. text isn't visible in debug build with Linux, but it is in release. Look how to look into it. It's still alpha. I use the master branch. That's what it suggests. Either you're using the master branch, so it's bleeding edge, so it's breaking, or so you should probably go back to beta or stable and see how it fares. Other than that, if you're on beta or stable, maybe go to master and see if it's been fixed. Yeah. What is a good way to create a sidebar navigation Flutter web? Renuka. Oh, is that it's Renuka. Hello, Renuka. Nice to see you. We can certainly explore that a little bit. How to approach theming. We can also explore that. We can do some code examples here. What else do we have here? Why isn't there official staggered grid view? So I'll briefly catch on this. Scrolling is hard. Scrolling is a very hard problem, and staggered scrolling is even harder. So the problem here is there's so many options, and then you by making it a standard widget, they end up increasing their workload to manage that widget without providing any real benefit, because you can build a staggered grid view from the existing infrastructure. So from a framework perspective, there's a point where they have to draw a line, and that's where it was drawn. But the fact is, there's some amazing libraries. I think it was Romani Rastel. I'm not saying his name right. I know I'm not. He's been a long time Flutter developer and member of the community. And I think he's the one that did staggered grid view. And I'm going to find out it's someone else in a second. No, it was Romain. Yeah. So let me share this quickly, and we'll get back to coding. Hopefully this comes through. Yeah, Flutter staggered grid by Romain. This is the go-to solution. He's actually, I think he was working on a rewrite of a bunch of stuff in it actually recently, but this will give you what you want, and yeah, go with that. I don't think I seem to remember there was something else that was in here. Anyway, yeah, you'll find that there. Flutter staggered grid view, the top one. Right, moving on. Where are we? Questions. Can you share the private? Oh, I lost that. Can you share the private Git repo without sharing your login info? No. There you go. Well, you don't. You just add someone to the private repo, don't you? To be honest, I don't know the free repos and how that works. Question: retrofit versus Dio. That's not a question. So neither. How's that? I mean, retrofit is providing you with some code generation. Great. In fact, is Raf the maker of retrofit in the chat? I can't remember. And then Dio is a HTTP library. Again, that's to simplify HTTP, but you can just call HTTP direct and get actually, frankly, some features that Dio doesn't offer. So, pick whatever's right for you, what you're doing. Hello, Renuka. Let's see. How can we have a text widget with a reply effect? Again, you have to be more specific than that reply effect. I mean,
that's
a button, a reply button. What do you mean? Would you approach to create an Android material and iOS app, Kubernetes app at the same time? Yes. There you go. I mean,
honestly, Flutter.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the whole idea. But no, that's a good one, Florian. It's all in the documentation. It really is.
Is there any tool or command line they help you out and use? I'm afraid there isn't at the moment, but there's a great opportunity for a package right there. So
good point. And for those who are not aware, the compiler that Flutter is using, the Dart compiler, is tree shaking. What that means is basically it takes your code, grabs it by the ankles, and then shakes it. And anything that is not nailed down, anything that's not used, falls out of the pockets and does not end up in your app, except assets. All the assets end up in your app, whether you're using them or not.
So yeah, there's definitely benefits that Flutter can get from reworking some of its resource management, and yeah, we'll see what comes in the future. We'll see what comes in the future. Let's see. How to increase image quality when converting an image using a render. How to increase the image quality when converting a widget to an image. Yeah, that's really difficult, and frankly, it's really, really difficult. I did this before. I checked my gist. I did like a capture. Let me see if I can find it for you. I solved this problem. No, I did. I had the exact same problem. It was capture widget. Check out this. I'll put the gist in the chat. I believe I had the similar problem and I fixed it in this. So hopefully that will help. Yeah, that's the best I could suggest to you right now. I definitely had the same problem where I wanted to capture an image that was larger than essentially the render size because it was a higher pixel ratio and I couldn't capture it. I worked out a way around it. Don't ask me if it's in there or what it was or what it is now. Yeah, I don't have a direct answer for that one, sorry.
Dot adaptive. I have never seen such a thing. Have you, Simon?
Yeah, the constructors that have dot adaptive. So you have like switch dot adaptive as a constructor.
Okay.
So let me API.flutter. I'll bring up the example here. And you should get to some live coding before we end the stream.
There's so much, not only in the SDK, but also, I mean, even in the Dart language itself. As I mentioned, go dig through the collections and see all the stuff that you have not been using.
So like the switch widget. Yeah, you'll see the switch widget has a constructor. Where is it? Yeah, adaptive constructor. And basically what this does is it, depending on the platform, here's the source code. I just said switch type adaptive, but inside the switch, basically, if it's iOS, it will use Cupertino switch. And then if it's Android or other platforms, it will use the material design switch. To be honest, I've always just done this in my code. Like, this is nice and all, but a lot of the time, there's not many. A switch is one of those examples where you want it to be adaptive. But for most part, a lot of widgets, you don't need adaptive widgets.
And this is a perfect time to bounce back, as I just did, iOS and Android. This one I really, video tutorials for deprecated code. First of all,
there already has been.
I want to jokingly say that, you know, why would you want a video on deprecated code? It's deprecated. But I think what they're talking about is something that Randall and I ran into one time. And that is, we had some deprecated class, and it said, use such and such and such. Well, okay, I copied and pasted. And no, it read that way. But actually what the Flutter team intended, and I actually took this to their Discord and said, what's going on? What actually ended up happening was they were showing the implementation as in the actual docs. You couldn't cut and paste that. So you actually needed to go and look up the class and see how it's used. And then you use it from there. But yeah, if you just look at something and it says deprecated use blank, don't cut and paste that. Not unless they've changed it.
So I'm going to get on with some code examples here quickly. If there's any, I don't see more new questions coming in. So let's see. So we were talking, the note came up, show some stack examples so we can look at some examples of what we're just talking about. So hopefully this is coming through for most people. So I've just basically
bigger.
I'll make it bigger. We'll get there.
You've got a lot of unused space to the left too. And right. I am all right. I am really enjoying this, but I apparently am needed elsewhere quite a lot today.
All All right. Well,
unfortunately, dog with arthritis and big storm moving through are not a good mix. And
I don't know
I need
if
to go
we have
take Sarah somebody. So
okay. Well, we'll
you all have
finish
a
this
good
off.
one. And stay tuned to the next 2 weeks.
Now we have
because
some big
next
things
week we have Matt Carroll. And then the following week, we're going to come on. I think we're going to come on about an hour early and do an hour real quick. And then we're going to give everyone time to switch over to the I/O keynote. Because don't forget, Google I/O is, that's in 2 weeks?
soon.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
There's
All
lots
right.
happening. Lots happening. Right. See you next time.
Take care.
So in this situation, we've got I just done a material out with a dark theme, and there's this home widget as a material and a stack. So what we can do is, let's say we have a positioned.fill, and we make that a colored box. Color. I don't really want to like burn everyone's retinas. Yeah. Like maybe a light blue accent. Do like blue shade. Let's do a dark shade maybe. See how that looks. That's two. Oh wait a minute. Was that grey? Was it grey blue or something? Blue grey. Dark shade. There we go. Let's make that a little bit lighter. Okay. There you go. It fills up the entire screen. This is so amazing, right? Now, if I wrap this in the center, he says it now takes up the same size. But it's because there's only one position item. But let's put text in here and say hello. There we go. So what I've now done with my position color is I've made a background around the text. Let me make that text bigger. Let's do. Just gonna hack this together here. Hang on. I want to do that? No. Do you know what? Let's just set the text size on this. I'm just gonna make things simple. We set this size to like 32. It's probably too big now. Oh no, you can make it bigger. There we go. So what we've got here is, if I remove the center, now type constraints are being passed down. So it doesn't matter that I've got position fill and a text. It's going to fill the size of the screen, right? So now this passes loose constraints down by putting the center in, and the stack does this, right? Now you can tell it to stack fit expand, and that will tell it to expand out like the center doesn't exist. All right, and then again, like things like we can now wrap this in a padding of, I don't know, 16 or something. I know it's probably something larger for the screen size. And there you go. So now we've got nice 32 around it, and the text size is 96. Does that kind of get what I was talking about? Roberto, if you have anything else, please put them in the chat, and we'll see if we can get to them. Talking about like theming, we might as well talk about theming with this example here. If you want a custom theme, let's do a quick example of that, shall we? Or that kind of thing. So let's say we have a widget called state for widget called content. And let's make that out. Do I want to stack? Yeah, let's do the stack. That stack that we had before is now our content class. In here. Hard to do something in an example that makes practical sense in a larger application, because you need to do a lot more to make it make sense. So hopefully my examples are not too basic, but also not too complicated. All right. So center content, and here's the hello that we did before. And let's say this background color, I want to theme that and have it dynamic. And what I can do is have, let's say, somewhere in my settings, we could do a settings screen. We could do a quick setting. Let's do that. So all I'm doing here is do status widget, call it settings screen. I'll rename home to home screen, make it nicer. And then here we can do a scaffold. Title settings. And then in the body, we'll just have a column, and inside that column, we'll put a is it list tile? I think it is. Tile with a title of dark theme, and another list tile. Light theme. Okay, and on these, when they tap on them, we want it to do something. Now again, I'm not doing separation of concerns here. Don't have these methods external. Do something a bit nicer than what I'm doing here. This is an example. Caveats apply. Let's do a couple of things. So first of all, we can flip around this light and dark theme. That's one thing we can do with this. So we'll do that now, and then we'll look at changing that color. So this is about custom theming and using the material theme at the same time, which is something that most Flutter apps want to do. So let's do a stateless class called app, and move our material app inside that because we want to rebuild it on demand. App. And then actually, let's make this full. I'm just being really quick about this. So let's say final theme data. Make that actually don't make it final. I want to make it late though. So when we initialize our app, we're going to be obviously we'd probably want to do load from disk, right? So load like which theme or settings or something. Right now, we're just going to say it's always, we start off in the dark theme. Yeah. Now, we can now use that theme data when constructing our widgets for the screen. And what we want to do is change this variable and then rebuild this widget. So there's a nice simple way of doing this. So what we can do is just make a setter called theme data, which takes a theme data. And we can normally be nice about this and say, do we already are the same? Are we already exactly the same? Then we don't want to do this. But if we are different, then we want to say set state and say the theme data equals the value. It's really nice and simple. Now, how do we call the setter from somewhere else in the app? So a normal practice, and this is basically not using this is using built-in stuff. We're not going to use inherited widget. We're just going to keep it really, really simple. And that is we can do a app state. So first of all, this is a private class. I'll explain a little bit more about it in just a second. So here is a context. And if we make this a static function, and then we say return context find ancestor state of exact type, we pass it the app state. So in essence, wherever you are in the app, if you call app.of, because it's a static method, you'll get the app state. It's as simple as it gets. Now, what this is going to do, what this function does, if you go, you won't find the implementation here. If you go find the element class, I don't think I'll find it. The base, oh, goodness me. Class, will you find it? There's a lot of classes called element, and I'm probably... Dart SDK? No, it won't be that. Maybe. Try the top one. Hey, look, I found the right one. Here you go. Element implements build context. See that? This has the implementation of this method. So if we go look for it, there it is. I just want to show this to everyone. So if you look at what this method does, is it gets the parent of your current widget that you're doing the of with. So for example, I'll give you an example of this. So as an app.of, so now if I go down to my buttons, I can say app.of context theme data equals theme data.doc. There you go. And then if I put that over here in the light one, that's as simple as it gets. Now, what this function does here is it's going to go take the context I've passed in, which is this one for the settings screen, and wherever that is used, it's going to go up the tree. In this case, it's because Material App hosts a navigator, and that goes up to the Material App, and that goes up to this class, this app instance, and finds that this has the app state. So it goes parent. Is the state of this ancestor the type that I've passed in? Yes, it is. And it breaks, casts the element, and gets the state from it and returns it. Simple as that. Otherwise, it keeps going up the tree. And at some point, if it doesn't find it, it returns null. And at the moment, we have a bang here, the exclamation mark. And that basically means if it returns back null, it will try and dereference the null, and it will explode on purpose. Right? You should never get into a situation where you cannot find an app state from anywhere within the app. That's on purpose, right? Because if that happens, and so a lot of developers do this. A lot of developers code with concern that a crash might happen and to put all these try catches everywhere and all the rest of it. The problem is you normally obscure the causes of your crashes by doing that. So what you normally want to do is let your app crash. You get your uncore exceptions getting logged by some Crashalytics kind of thing, or you log them yourself, however you want to, send them to yourself, and then you can identify the problems. If you code like too cautiously, right, you would start returning nulls or default values. You can get into a situation where some incorrect state has caused something else to be set, and therefore you didn't know there was a problem. So yeah, just this should never occur, and that's why if for some reason I access app state of and it was to return null, that is something that is a bug that needs to be fixed, and I want it to crash. In short, anyway, right. So another thing, if this is called from a background thread, you probably want to say if mounted, which you don't want to call set state without checking the widget's mounted. So there you go. Right. So now we've done that. If I restart the app, we don't know how to get to the settings screen yet. So let's add a scaffold on our home screen instead of the material. And let's add an app bar. And call this home. And then on the app bar, we'll add a action. And that's going to have a icon button. And that icon button, when you press it, will look for the navigator of the context that we're in, just the same as we did that. And in this case, we want to push a material and just, well, I'll actually do this slightly different. I'll show you in a second. And then icon settings. I think there's like a cog or something, right? Called settings. Yay. Okay. And so when we push, we need to push a route, and I tend to do a method that returns our route, static method in my destination class. This way, if you have these in different files, the one you're calling from references the class when you're going to. It also puts the boundary on the concern around the route on the destination, not on where you're calling it from, because normally you want to call like the settings screen from multiple places. So anyway, so here we just return a material route, do our own route, whatever it might be. And I think material route, page route has a builder. There we go. And then inside that builder, we want to return back our settings screen. Nice and simple. Now, officially, if you're going to do this, you want to make sure you have route settings. And in this case, especially if you're doing web or other things like that, and you want to give it a name, in this case, I'll do /settings. Okay, so now we've done that. const in there. Why not? And using this context. There we go. So now we have this route method. I can now just call settings screen dot route. And if I made it static, that would work fine. Settings screen dot route. Okay, so now let's restart. Okay, so now we have a home. I'm sorry, it's a bit small at the top there. Home, and we have a little settings icon. Tap on that. Here's our settings screen. We can do light theme. Instantly changes. Hit back. That's changed. Right? Nice and simple. Dark theme, light theme. All done. I will post this example to everyone. I'll put this up in a gist in a minute. Now, when it comes to the custom theming of hello, what we could do. So I just had an idea here. I like the idea. We're going to try this. We're going to try this. Let's wrap our settings screen in a stack. This is going to like mind bend everyone. Let's wrap that in a stack. And then convert to children. Right, here we go quickly. And then let's have this. We're talking about stacks and so on. Wrap this with a fractionally sized box. Oh, this is crazy. What am I doing, Simon? Let's do it. Let's do it. It's fun. It can only break. Right. And then on here we'll have a height factor of 0.25 and a width factor of 1.0, which means, if anyone hasn't guessed already, that should take up a quarter of the top of the screen because the default alignment on our stack is top left. So let's do it again and hit the settings button. Okay, so that didn't work. Well, it didn't work in two things. One is our alignment is not set to top left, it's set to center. I thought it was top left was the default. It might be apparent around us. Let's just check. Something else is going to happen. So we'll go fix this by not using material page route. Material page route has some other things it does. If we use a page route builder, it's kind of like the raw form of a page route. So let's take our builder, what we're building, and now we can, and it's a different type of builder. It's called a page builder, and what it gives us more control over the. We get these animations in. Now I'm not going to bother with the animations, but we could do something. So that's what I want. Now the reason we're doing this is now I can set a page to false, and that'll make it transparent, which is what I want. There we go. And now I want it to sit on the top half of the screen, and that's because I know why. Because my alignment of fraction size box is wrong. Back to this. Click on that. There we go. And I can say light theme, dark theme, light theme, dark theme. Hit back. So that actually sat on top, should we say? Now, if I wrap my settings screen with, say, a material, we're really going to just hack this together. This is not necessarily the most performant way, but it will do. And then add a elevation to it. We now have let's go with 8. Let's go with 8. We need to give it a shape. I think we need to give it a shape, don't we? Oh, let's find out. Things. There you go. Let's give it a different background. I think we need a different background. Let's give theme.of. Can only go wrong. Let's have a background color and see how that looks. I think it's different from scaffold background. There we go. So now we have this floating panel, which we can change the light and dark theme of, and hit back, and it sits on top. Interesting enough, if we want to go one step more, let's do 0.5 on the width to make it top right. This is not if this is interesting to anyone, but you know, it's fun all the same. Here you go. And make the top right. And now we have a 50% panel that sits up at the top right that we can change our theme. There you go. Nice and simple. Fun little thing to do, I guess. You can also do this thing where you click outside and we can dismiss this route. And it's super simple to do. I'm going to do it right now just because we're all here and we can do it. And let's just wrap our stack with the gesture detector. It says, oh yeah, gesture detector. There we go. And we'll just add a quick on tap. And then we can just say navigator of context pop. There's no visual feedback to this at the moment. The reason why I had to switch to material page route is because a material page route doesn't support opaque. So if we want to add an animation to this, we could just wrap this with a fade transition, and we'll give it that animation as the, and hopefully magic will happen. Should we see? Click on the icon. It fades in. You can do light and click off. Okay, I know why that happened. I need a behavior on here. Test behavior. Okay. This, even though we don't paint any pixels, it will still treat it as if it was painted, and therefore the hit should go through. Let's find out if I did that right. Yep, I did. There you go. So now we have a little panel that we can launch and change the theme actively and click off. I don't know if that was fun for anyone. I'm not looking at the live chat. I think I've lost it, but hopefully everyone's having a cool time with learning a bit more about UIs and Flutter. So quickly, let's do the custom theme and then we'll wrap things up. So now we'll post this to everyone in just a moment, so everyone has this code. So let's do a let's change that custom theme. So first of all, what we want to do is let's go down to the bottom here and add a class, and we'll call it custom theme, just because I don't think we're any good naming. And we'll call this content background color. I don't know. Custom theme data. Custom theme data. I like custom theme data. Let's do that. And it's a final color. So now we have constructor for it. Make a constructor. That's not right. Make a constructor for it. And then we'll have a toString that returns what this is, which is a custom theme data. And it's we'll just put in it right now just something just so we can debug it if we need to. Custom, this should override equals and hash code and all this kind of stuff. I'm not gonna. Yeah, let's do that. So there's a trick in IntelliJ. You do alt insert or option insert Mac hash code, and then it will automatically generate those lovely methods for you, so you don't have to deal with it. So custom theme data. Now we have a custom theme data object. We want to use it. So again, we go back up to our theme here, our theme data. And we'll do a late custom theme data. And now we'll make a setter for. We can make a setter for it. Thing is, again, I'm moving the theme data down because I was just doing an example, right? But truthfully, you probably want like an enum for light and dark theme. So let's quickly chuck that in. So into enum theme app theme type. Have light theme, dark theme, and light theme, yeah. And then our state is just that. Okay. And then this will be app theme type. App theme type. And we want to set up for app theme type. And okay, so if those two values differ, then what we want to do is assign our theme. We're still going to have theme data. We need that to decide what. Well, we can do a couple of things here. We can hard code these values. We can have like a map for them if we want to more than two. Right now, I kind of like the idea of doing a simple lookup. So we can't extend functions on enums without experimental mode. I'm not going to show you that right now. What we can do is do an extension. I'm putting this all in one file. This is a terrible idea. This is an example. Do multiple files. Anyway, when you do an extension, you should name it. So this is extension on app theme type. On app theme type. do like app theme type ext or something. That might be nice. Anyway, and now what I can do is say return back a theme data and say theme, and this is going to be a getter, and this returns back if this is equal to if this is equal to dark theme, and I want to return back theme data.dark. Else if this is equal to light theme, it should probably be better to do a switch because then it's inclusive. So if you add more to the enum, it will tell you you're missing the case statement for it. So at theme type, will it let us do this? Oh, it won't, will it? Because of the way they're compiled, I think. Hang on, let's just see. Let's see what happens. Let me just. I'm probably gonna have to revert this change, but we'll see. Okay. Oh no, it's going to allow it. All right. All right. There we go. Right. So that's theme data, and then we'll do the same thing for our custom theme. What do we call it? It's called custom theme data. Do that. Call it custom theme. Why not? And then here you can change our color, our background color. You probably want to like make these constants. Let's the main parameter. Says and so our current dark theme is going to use the current color, which I've lost. Hang on, where am I? Broken everything. There we go. Color's blue. Go back to where we were. Color's blue-gray. And then for our light theme, we'll do a light shade of blue-gray. Let's do a blue accent in a light shade. I have no idea. There you go. We'll do that. Now, so now we have these. In fact, I'm gonna we'll leave them at the top there. So now we have this. You can set your theme and it sets it. Then we need to set our theme type here so we'll set our app theme type by default to the dark theme. And then here, so we get our app theme. Because we did the extension method on our enum, now we can get to the theme. That will give us the right theme instance that we want back. Obviously, these aren't const. It'd be better to have this all as const, especially these have a theme.dart file, which just has maybe globals for the different themes. So they're easy accessible. But yeah, that's not what that'll do. Now what we can do, and here's where inherited widget comes into it. And half of me wants to go with a platform for this, but also half of me knows that that's just going to be way too complicated for a lot of people. So we'll go with the latest provider. Get that. Okay. And I'm going to have to restart this. Probably, maybe not. I don't know. I'm doing it anyway. And what I'll do is I'm going to wrap my material app provider widget. Oh, it's not going to compile anyway right now because I've broken things, but that's fine. And then I want to provide a custom. Oh, come on. A custom theme data. And we're going to do dot value. And then the value of this is going to be our app theme type custom theme. So now I'm providing custom theme data anywhere inside my class. Quickly, briefly, now what we could do, probably don't want this on the model object, but I'm going to stick it here anyway. Again, custom theme data of build context. And call this return provider of context and type of that. I don't think, yeah, if it's not, it's a mistake. Right, so now when it comes to our background color in here, we've made this of method just like we did before, using provider this time. And I'll explain why we use provider in just a second. So now I can say custom theme data of context color background. Right. Now I've got to my color model. I can get that data out. And what's happening is it's provided further up by that provider. Where am I? Sorry, I'm further up here by this provider. And what's going to happen is when I call set state, it changes my enum value that rebuilds this. And based on the enum value, it's going to supply different value for the theme and for the provider. Provider will when a widget does of, so further down here, let me fix these mistakes and we can run it and you can see. Running that theme type. Theme type block. And light. Run that. That should run now. Whilst it's doing that, compiling. So when we call this setter, it's sorry, going back to where I was. Further down here in content, when it does this of method, what it's doing is registering this context, that is the context of the content state, with the provider's inherited widget. And what that means is if the provider changes its value, it will rebuild this widget. So if you look here, if I go into settings cog and press light theme, the background, our custom themed background color has changed because of this. It's that simple. We didn't do, there's no like notification code. It's just there. It works. It's that simple. And I hit dark and it changes again. You can see this nicely colored, nicely changing theming. You know, there's no like magic here. Like that's literally how the platform has always behaved. That's how it's supposed to behave, if that kind of makes sense. Hopefully that wasn't too much, and hopefully that was an interesting example of this theming and so on. What I'll do, actually I don't use this, so that's fine, that can come away. I tell you what we'll do, we'll park it here. I leave it as a task for the viewers to try and load and save the state from disk. I will give you a hint. You want to go look at package path provider and support directory. There you go. For desktop, that is. There you go. Anyway, right. All right, I'm going to post that in gist, and then we'll finish up the stream. So let's stop the screen share. Hopefully that was helpful to a lot of people. Or at least all the viewers will get that. Let's go stick this in a gist, and then everyone has it for reference. And what should we call it? Stack theming? Humpday stack theming. Humpday stack theming. Today's date is 27/4/2022. That flies. This is, I'm not public. You can, it's public domain. There you go. Yeah, it's in the chat, and I'll bring it up on a banner for those that maybe if the live chat doesn't exist or doesn't work or something like that, you can find it here at a very long hash code. Sorry, that's just for you. There you go. Let's see what's going on in the conversation, and then we'll wrap up, I think. Let's see. I missed all the conversation whilst I was doing that, so sorry, everyone. Let's see. What do we have? Thanks for the presentation. You're welcome. I think that was Ben. Which state management are you using nowadays, Simon? Flutter. There you go. You just saw what I used. I saw code when run app was called multiple times. What context? You shouldn't call run app multiple. I don't think there's any reason to call run app multiple times. Originally, it would cause an error. I don't think you can even do that. You shouldn't do that. What's your favorite plugins? The Dart ones, the Dart and Flutter. There's no. Find the right one for the right job. I do like. I tell you one I do like that I used recently. That was they've renamed it. So let me just get the name of it. I think it was PDFX. Yeah, PDFX by Surge. Yeah, there you go. I'll put that in the chat for you. I don't know who that was. Sorry, that was Naked Tech, apparently. Thank you very much for your question. Right. At Immutable on the widgets. So the at Immutable tells it's all the ats are also called annotations. They have another name in Dart. Annotations comes from Java, but they are just hints to the compiler about how to treat this thing. In this case, these hints apply to the analyzer, and it tells you if your variable state can be mutated. So if I didn't put final, it would tell me you can't do this. This is bad. So all widgets, it's the state that mutates, but the widget itself is always final. It is always immutable. If you change variables in your widgets without reconstructing them, you are going to cause yourself lots of hassle and problems. That's why they're always final. So always add immutable. You can just go edit your templates like I have. It really does help. Sorry, that's a follow-on from that one. What's this? How can you make a button inside a stack be flexible in size? That can be flexible in the rows. Exactly what I just did with the fill positioned. Perhaps we can answer them next week. I'm just concerned about time because we're running over now. Trying to implement it. So someone's trying to implement a terminal app. Is there a way to display colored terminal text, the text widget? So you do text.rich and you provide text span. Text span allows you to adjust the color of sections of text and the font sizes and other things, like rich text does, right? Like bold, italics, and all that, where you can change the color, and that's how you would do that. To be honest, I think in a terminal, since you probably want to have a number of characters across like monospaced, you'd probably be better off just developing a two-dimensional array of cells, and each cell can be filled with a character, and just do the sort of terminal rendering and scrolling yourself. It's probably it means that essentially you can change the colors of any point on the screen. That's how terminals naturally work from the olden days. I don't know, try it. I've already answered the next questions. And terminal history, again, same thing. You just keep history of the lines and re-render them when you scroll and change. I mean, that's the program. I mean, there's no answering a lot of these. My app is running in debug mode. When I tried to make an APK, Flutter build API, it's showing you Dart snapshot failed to generate code -9. Any solution? I've never seen that before. Do a Flutter clean. Make sure you're running the most recent version of Flutter stable. I would not worry too much. It's not Dart snapshot. It literally means the Dart compiler has failed. It probably generates a log. What you can do is just compile your Dart code in release mode locally. We run it instead of running in app, and then see if you get maybe more the log. Oh, when you run Flutter build, you can add -- verbose or -V, and it will give you lots more information about what caused the error where. So do that first. Hopefully that will give you enough information to go online and Google the answer. All of these, you're most welcome. Thanks very much for the compliments. Let's see. Nick, you guys gonna have to watch again. You missed some awesome live coding. Apparently it was amazing. There you go. You're most welcome, everyone. I think why would you like to use Windows? Because I prefer Windows rather than Mac. There you go. The thing is, I built Windows apps beforehand and before Flutter and all this, and so I know the entire OS architecture and how it all works and how it behaves. So for me, if there's any problem, I can fix it. You know, like why would I go anywhere else? And who cares? Like, it's an operating system. It's not supposed to get in your way, and if it doesn't get in your way, then that's fine. For me, when I use Mac, it gets in my way. So why am I going to use that? It's whatever you're used to. Doesn't matter. I have all the Linux, like LS and all the rest of it is all just works on my machine. Like, they're just compiled for Windows. Done. So, you know, you're not missing anything. How to store maps and share preferences, convert them to JSON, make them a string. There you go. To be honest, I wouldn't use share preferences personally. I would just use a JSON file, because ultimately, when you use shared preference is nice and simple for beginners. So go ahead, use it as a beginner. But the problem is when you use a shared preference, you write the string, it goes across a method channel to the native platform. The native platform possibly stores it, caches it, does some other things. Then it writes it to disk. It converts your JSON into a string. Your string gets put into an XML file. Your XML file is written to the disk. All of that for when you could have just in your app written it to the file on the hard drive, on the disk, on the memory, directly, and read it directly without any of that happening. So for me, it's more indirect. 20 hours of coding, 4 hours sleep day. Now it comes from 20 years of coding. That's what it comes from. Right. Do I dream in code? Maybe I do dream in code. I don't know. I don't remember my dreams. See if we can get. Oh, anyway, next week, can we see if we can get a list view not to rebuild the state of its children when an item is inserted from the beginning? Interesting one. You can do that, but the easiest thing to solve that problem is not insert the beginning. Append it to the end and set your list view to reverse true. There you go. Oh yeah, and then also someone actually mentioned run Flutter Doctor for the person that was having problems with Dart compiling. Definitely run that. You'll find a lot of issues if you have any previous issues. What's written on the board behind you? All of this, or this stuff over here, that's old notes for code. I need to put it up on the wall. It's been a long time. Nothing important. Right. Oh, yeah. And I haven't forgotten, Richard. I've literally got an icon on my desktop just to sort this out. So don't worry. It will get there. Right. Well, we'll call it a day. Thanks very much for joining us. And hopefully everyone had a great time and their questions were answered. And yeah, put your suggestions in the comments and we'll read them. Hopefully read them before next stream and see if we can do some stuff on the next stream. Right. We'll try and get into an organization here. So fingers crossed. Right. Well, we'll speak soon and have a good week, everyone, and see you next Humpday. Bye-bye.